The massive chamber aboard the Stellar Dominion flagship glowed with an eerie purple light. Captain James Miller stood alone on a circular platform, his blue Earth Diplomatic Corps uniform stark against the dark metal floor. He kept his back straight and his face calm, though sweat trickled down his spine. Before him loomed the 20-foot holographic image of Empress Vex, ruler of the largest empire the galaxy had ever known. "Human," the Empress said, her voice deep and cold. Her scaled face showed what Miller had learned to recognize as disgust. "Your time of independence ends." Miller had prepared for this meeting for months, but the sight of the Empress still made his heart race. Her body was covered in iridescent scales that shifted from deep blue to purple. The crown of bony plates on her head rose in agitation. Her 4 yellow eyes blinked sideways in turn, never all closing at once. "Empress Vex," Miller replied with a small bow. "Earth wishes to continue our peaceful trade agreements. We have honored all treaties." A rumbling sound came from the Empress, something between a laugh and a growl. "Peace is for equals. Your species is not our equal." The hologram shifted, showing a map of human space. Earth glowed blue at the center, with its 17 colony. Worlds spread across 20 light-years. Red dots appeared, marking human defensive stations and ship positions. "The Dominion has watched you for 50 years, Vex continued. "Our spies have counted every ship, every weapon, every soldier. Your fleet has exactly 200 vessels. Impressive for such a young species, but nothing compared to Dominion might." The map zoomed out, revealing the vast stretch of Dominion, territory surrounding human space on 3 sides. Then thousands of red markers appeared, representing the Dominion fleet. Miller's mouth went dry at the display. Not because it was frightening, but because it confirmed what Earth Command had suspected. The Dominion's intelligence was exactly as limited as they had hoped. "Your species has 1 standard rotation to surrender your worlds," the Empress declared. "Our armada of 5,000 ships stands ready. This is mercy. Accept our rule, and your people may continue their existence as productive subjects." "And if we refuse?" Miller asked, already knowing the answer. Vex's upper lip curled, revealing teeth like polished black daggers. "Then we will take your worlds anyway, and your people will serve as an example of the cost of defiance." A tall figure stepped into view beside the Empress, her military commander, Krell. His scales were darker, almost black, and his eyes were cold. "Our first attack fleet is already positioned," Krell stated. "Your outer colonies would fall within hours. Earth itself within days." Miller took a deep breath. This was the moment Earth Command had planned for. "Empress, surely there's no need for such threats. Humanity has never challenged Dominion authority in the galaxy." "Your very existence is a challenge," Vex hissed. "Your kind spreads too quickly, thinks too differently. Other species begin to question our rule after observing your independence. It cannot continue." "I request time to bring your demands to Earth's government," Miller said, following the script he had memorized. "1 rotation," the Empress repeated. "Not a moment more. The decision is simple: surrender or destruction." The hologram vanished, leaving Miller standing alone in the chamber. A door slid open and 2 Dominion guards entered to escort him back to his ship. As he walked through the massive Dominion flagship, Miller observed everything he could. The guards were large, nearly 8 feet tall, with the same scaled skin as their Empress. They carried energy weapons that could vaporize a human in seconds. Other crew members moved with purpose through the corridors, none giving the human diplomat more than a passing glance. They thought humans were no threat. That was exactly what Earth needed them to think. Miller's small diplomatic vessel waited in the docking bay. Once aboard, he nodded to his pilot, Tom Reed, who immediately began launch procedures. "How did it go?" Reed asked quietly as the ship detached from the Dominion vessel. "Exactly as expected," Miller replied. "They're overconfident. They believe their intelligence is perfect." The small ship moved away from the massive Dominion flagship. At over 3 miles long, it dwarfed anything in the human fleet. The official human fleet, at least. Once they were clear of immediate Dominion sensors, Miller went to the secure communications room. He pressed his palm against a scanner, then, leaned close for a retinal scan. The system hummed, then opened a quantum-encrypted channel that not even the Dominion could detect or decode. Admiral Helen Davis appeared on the screen. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her weathered face showed the strain of recent weeks. As head of Earth's Defense Force, she had been preparing for this moment for decades. "It's time," Miller said simply. Davis nodded, her expression grim but determined. "Operation Shadow Fleet is go. Get back to Earth space immediately. We'll need you for the next phase." "Were they convinced?" she asked. Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Completely. They think we have 200 ships exactly as we've let them believe. They have no idea what's waiting." "Good," Davis replied. "Safe journey, Captain." The communication ended, and Miller leaned back in his chair. Humanity had spent 30 years building their real fleet in secret. While showing the galaxy a small force of 200 ships, they had constructed thousands more in hidden facilities deep within the atmospheres of gas giants. Places the Dominion sensors couldn't penetrate. Ships with technology the Dominion couldn't imagine. For 3 decades, Earth had maintained the appearance of a minor power while preparing for this inevitable day. The Dominion had conquered 17 other species. Humanity would not be the 18th. Reed's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, we have Dominion ships following at a distance. Standard procedure?" "Yes," Miller confirmed. "Let them follow. When we reach the jump point, execute emergency pattern Delta." "Understood, sir." Emergency pattern Delta would make it appear that their ship was rushing home in panic, exactly what the Dominion would expect from a species that had just received an ultimatum. Miller stared out at the stars. In less than 24 hours, the Dominion would learn that humanity was not what they seemed. The thought of Empress Vex's face when she realized the truth brought him a moment of satisfaction, but that feeling quickly faded. What was coming would change the galaxy forever. Thousands might die, or millions, unless humanity's plan worked perfectly. As his ship accelerated toward Earth space, Miller closed his eyes and hoped that 30 years of deception would be enough to prevent a war that neither side could truly win. But if war came anyway, humanity was ready. Empress Vex paced across the polished black floor of her war chamber. Her clawed feet clicked with each step, echoing in the vast room. Around a large holographic table stood her top military commanders, their scaled bodies tense as they waited for her next words. "Show me the human defenses again," she ordered. Commander Krell touched a control, and the 3-dimensional map of human space appeared above the table. Earth glowed at the center, surrounded by its colonies. Small blue dots marked the positions of the human fleet. Exactly 200 ships spread thin across their territory. "Their deadline expires in 1 hour, Empress," Krell said. "They have made no attempt to contact us, no surrender." Vex's mouth twisted into what passed for a smile among her kind. As expected, humans are proud for such a young species. She turned to her intelligence officer. "Your reports are certain? They have no hidden forces?" Intelligence Officer Mox bowed low. "Absolutely certain, Your Eminence. We have monitored human space for 50 years. Their military budget, their shipyards, their resource allocation, all of it confirms a fleet of exactly 200 vessels. They cannot hide such things from Dominion intelligence." Vex nodded, satisfied. The Dominion had conquered 17 other species over 10,000 years. None had stood against them for long. Humans would be no different despite their reputation for cleverness. "Begin the attack sequence," she commanded. "Target their outer colonies first. Show them the price of defiance." Commander Krell moved to obey but stopped suddenly, his eyes fixed on the display. "Your Eminence," he said, his voice uncertain. "We detect unusual energy signatures from the gas giants in 3 human systems." "Explain," Vex demanded. "Jupiter, in their home system, Titan near their Alpha Centauri colony, and the gas giant orbiting Epsilon Eridani," Krell reported. "Deep scans show disturbances in the upper atmospheres." Vex dismissed this with a flick of her taloned hand. "They're pathetic attempts at deception. Weather control, perhaps, to try to confuse our sensors. Begin the attack. Wait! Officer Mox cried out suddenly, his eyes wide as he studied his data screen. Massive power spikes detected in all gas giants across human territory. The holographic display flickered. Then, impossibly, new contacts began to appear. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of new ships emerging from within the gas giants of every human system. The room fell silent as the Dominion commanders stared in disbelief. The new vessels were unlike any known human design, sleek, dark, and radiating power signatures that rivaled Dominion dreadnoughts. Impossible, Krell exclaimed, breaking the silence. Where did they hide such a fleet? Vex stared at the display, her 4 yellow eyes blinking rapidly. Count them, she ordered, her voice low and dangerous. Officer Mox worked frantically at his console. 3,147 vessels, Empress, still more emerging. Impossible, Vex roared, slamming her fist on the table. No species could hide such a force from us. Your intelligence has failed, Mox. The intelligence officer trembled. Empress, we monitored their shipyards, their resource allocation, You monitored what they wanted you to see. Vex snarled. She turned to Krell. Analysis of these ships now. Krell studied the incoming data. Unknown design. Power readings exceed our battlecruisers. Hull composition. We cannot identify the material. They appear to be using some form of gravity manipulation for propulsion. As they watched, the human ships formed precise formations throughout their territory. Not the chaotic scramble of a force hastily assembled, but the disciplined movement of a fleet that had trained for this moment. How long? Vex asked quietly. How long have they been building this force? Based on the number of vessels. Decades, Empress, Krell replied. Perhaps 30 years. 30 years of deception, Vex whispered. Then her face contorted with rage. Open a channel to their command. The holographic display shifted, and Admiral Helen Davis appeared. The human woman sat calmly in what appeared to be a command center, her gray hair pulled back, her uniform crisp. Empress Vex, Davis said with a small nod. I see you've noticed our defense force. What treachery is this? Vex demanded, rage evident in her bared teeth and flared neck crest. You concealed your true military strength. Not treachery, Davis replied calmly. Prudence. The Dominion has a history of conquering species that cannot defend themselves. We simply ensured we could. Your diplomatic vessel has just returned to Earth, Commander Krell reported quietly to Vex. Captain Miller is aboard their command station. As if hearing this, the view widened to show Captain Miller standing beside Admiral Davis. He had changed from his diplomatic uniform to a military one. Empress, Miller said, for 30 years your intelligence services saw exactly what we wanted them to see. A small fleet, limited technology, while we built our real forces in places your sensors couldn't penetrate. The gas giants, Vex growled. The storms and radiation, Miller nodded. Perfect cover for our shipyards. Your sensors couldn't see through the atmospheric interference. We built our fleet in plain sight, yet completely hidden. Vex's claws dug into the edge of the table. You will regret this deception, humans. The Dominion fleet still outnumbers yours. We have 5,000 ships to your 3,000. Quality matters as much as quantity, Empress, Admiral Davis replied. And there's something else you should know. The display changed to show a close-up of one of the human vessels. It was dark, almost black, with sleek lines and no visible weapons. Our ships don't use the same technology as yours, Davis explained. We took a different path. While you focused on plasma weapons and particle shields, we developed gravity, manipulation, and dimensional phasing. Dimensional phasing? Krell whispered, his scientific curiosity briefly overcoming his alarm. That's theoretical. Not for us, Miller said, not anymore. Vex slammed her hand on a control, cutting the transmission. She turned to her commanders, rage radiating from her scaled body. Prepare the fleet, she ordered. All of it. We will crush these deceptive humans and make an example of them that the galaxy will never forget. Empress, Krell said cautiously, perhaps we should reconsider. If their technology is truly as advanced as they claim, are you afraid, Commander? Vex hissed. Krell straightened. No, Empress, but I recommend caution. We should test their capabilities, first with a smaller force. Vex considered this, her rage gradually cooling into calculated malice. Yes, a test. She pointed to the display, where the human ships continued to take formation. Send the first attack fleet to their outermost colony. Let us see if these mysterious ships can actually fight. As her commanders rushed to obey, Vex stared at the frozen image of Miller and Davis on the screen. For 30 years, the humans had deceived the mighty Dominion. For 30 years, they had prepared in secret. You have played a dangerous game, humans, she whispered to the silent image. Now we shall see who truly rules the stars. Admiral Helen Davis stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, the flagship of Earth's hidden fleet. The ship hummed with power as it held position near Earth's moon. Through the large view screen, she could see hundreds of the sleek, dark vessels that humanity had built in secret over 3 decades. Captain James Miller stood beside her, still adjusting to being back in a military uniform after years of diplomatic work. Around them, the bridge crew worked at their stations, with practiced efficiency. Admiral, called the sensor officer, a young woman named Lisa Park. All ships reporting ready. Total count, 3,247 vessels awaiting your command. Davis nodded, her face calm despite the weight of the moment. 30 years of planning, building, and training had led to this. The greatest deception in human history was now fully revealed. The Dominion will not take this well, Miller said, quietly. They were never going to, Davis replied. From the moment they discovered humanity, they marked us for conquest. We just refused to be easy prey. The communications officer turned from his station. Admiral, incoming transmission from the Empress. On screen, Davis ordered. The image of Empress Vex appeared, her scaled face twisted with rage. The bony crest on her head was fully extended, a sign of extreme agitation among her species. Humans, she snarled. What treachery is this? You concealed your true military strength. Davis met the alien ruler's gaze steadily. We revealed exactly what we wanted you to see, Empress. The Dominion has conquered 17 species in the past 10,000 years. We studied those conquests carefully. You target weak civilizations or those that appear weak. So you deceived us, Vex hissed. We survived, Davis corrected. Your empire has a clear pattern. You send spies and observers first. You assess potential targets for years. If they seem unable to defend themselves, you conquer them. If they seem strong, you leave them alone. Miller stepped forward. I spent 7 years as a diplomat to your court, Empress. I saw how you treated species you deemed weak. We knew our time would come. Vex's yellow eyes narrowed. How did you hide such a fleet? Our sensors mapped every inch of your territory. Davis allowed herself a small smile. Not every inch. Gas. Giants like Jupiter and Saturn have powerful magnetic fields and constant storms. Perfect cover for our hidden shipyards. Your sensors couldn't penetrate them. We built our real fleet where you couldn't see. On a secondary screen, Davis could see tactical data showing a Dominion battle group approaching humanity's outermost colony. Just as Earth Command had predicted, the Empress was sending a small force to test humanity's capabilities. It changes nothing, Vex declared. The Dominion still has more ships, more experience. We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years while your kind was still using stone tools. Numbers aren't everything, Davis replied, and experience can breed overconfidence. Your ships may be numerous, but they are untested, Vex said dismissively. Mine have conquered countless worlds. Then I suppose we'll find out soon enough, Davis said, nodding toward the tactical display showing the approaching Dominion ships. Your attack force will reach our colony at New Horizon within the hour. Vex's expression shifted slightly, surprised that the humans had detected her ship so easily. We would still prefer peace to war, Empress, Miller added. Even now, The galaxy is vast. There's room for both our civilizations. Peace, Vex scoffed. After this deception, the Dominion does not share power. Your choice remains the same. Surrender or destruction. The transmission ended abruptly. Davis turned to her crew. They're not backing down. Signal Battle Group Alpha to defend New Horizon Colony. Execute Operation First Strike. As orders went out across the human fleet, Miller looked at Davis with concern. The Dominion attack force consists of 200 ships, their newest and best. Are you sure Alpha Group can handle them alone? Davis nodded confidently. Alpha Group has 50 of our Phantom-class vessels, more than enough. It's time to show the Empress what our ships can really do. Far from Earth, at the edge of human space, the colony of New Horizon orbited a distant star. It was humanity's newest settlement, home to just 50,000 people. Above the blue-green world, 20 Dominion battle cruisers and 180 support ships appeared from faster-than-light travel. Commander Trey Bennett of the UES Ghost watched from the bridge of his Phantom-class vessel as the Dominion ships formed attack positions. Around him, 49 similar human ships waited in perfect formation. They were smaller than the massive Dominion battle cruisers, but their dark hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Enemy ships launching fighters, reported his tactical officer. They're beginning their attack run on the colony. Bennett nodded calmly. Activate dimensional phase shields. Bring gravity weapons online. Let's show them what these ships can do. Across the human formation, the dark ships began to glow with a subtle blue light along their hulls. On the lead Dominion battlecruiser, Commander Ralek watched with contempt as his forces moved toward the human colony. The strange human ships were holding position, making no attempt to intercept. Pathetic, he said to his second-in-command. They don't even try to protect their colony. Sir, called his sensor officer with concern, I'm detecting strange energy readings from the human vessels. What kind of... Before Ralek could finish his question, the human ships vanished. Where did they go? He demanded. Unknown, Commander, they've disappeared from all sensors. Suddenly, alarms blared across the Dominion ship. 5 human vessels appeared directly alongside Ralek's battlecruiser, impossibly close within his shields. How did they... Ralek began, but his words were cut short as blue beams of energy shot from the human ships. The beams didn't explode or burn. Instead, they distorted space itself around the Dominion vessels. Gravity pulled in impossible directions. 3 Dominion cruisers were crushed into twisted metal. 2 more spun helplessly as their artificial gravity reversed. Across the battlefield, the human ships blinked in and out of normal space, appearing inside the defensive formations of the Dominion fleet. Their gravity weapons didn't need to penetrate shields. They warped space-time itself. On the UES Ghost, Commander Bennett watched as the Dominion forces tried desperately to counter their attack. But the Dominion ships were fighting an enemy they couldn't track, using weapons designed for a type of warfare that humans had moved beyond. Sir, his communications officer reported, the Dominion commander is broadcasting a retreat signal. Bennett nodded. Let them go. Our orders are to defend the colony, not pursue. As the surviving Dominion ships fled into faster-than-light travel, Bennett opened a channel to Earth Command. Admiral Davis appeared on screen. Report, Commander, she ordered. Complete. Success, Admiral, Bennett replied. The dimensional phase technology worked perfectly. They couldn't track us, couldn't hit us, their shields were useless. We neutralized 47 enemy ships. No casualties on our side. The remaining Dominion vessels are retreating. Davis nodded, satisfaction in her eyes. Well done, Commander. Return to defensive positions. This was just their first test. The real battle is yet to come. As Bennett's crew celebrated their victory, he knew the Admiral was right. They had surprised the Dominion today, but the Empress would not take this defeat lightly. The true test of humanity's deception, and their new technology, was still to come. Empress Vex's war chamber had gone silent. The holographic display showed the devastating defeat of her attack force at the human colony. Of the 200 ships she had sent, less than half had returned, many of those badly damaged. Impossible, Commander Krell whispered, breaking the silence. How could they defeat our best ships so easily? Vex's rage had cooled into something more dangerous, a cold, calculating fury. Show me the battle recordings again, she ordered. The display changed to show the battle from multiple angles. The strange human ships disappeared from normal space, then reappeared inside Dominion formations. Blue beams distorted space itself, crushing Dominion vessels without ever touching their shields. Analysis, Vex demanded. Science Officer Lorne stepped forward nervously. Based on the recordings, Empress, the humans appear to have mastered dimensional phasing. They can shift their ships between dimensions, allowing them to bypass our shields entirely. And these weapons? Vex pointed to the blue beams. Gravity manipulation, Lorne explained. They don't attack our ships directly. They warp gravity around them. No shield can block that. Vex's claws tapped on the table's surface. Can we copy this technology? Not quickly, Lorne admitted. Their approach is completely different from our own. They've taken a path of development we never explored. Then we will crush them with numbers, Vex declared. Prepare the main fleet. All 5,000 ships. We will overwhelm these humans with the full might of the Dominion. Commander Krell shifted uncomfortably. Empress, perhaps we should consider their offer of peace. If their technology is this advanced, Vex spun toward him, her neck crest fully, extended in rage. Peace? After they humiliated the Dominion? After they made fools of us all? No. They will be destroyed, and you will lead the attack, Commander. Krell bowed low. As you command, Empress. Aboard the UES Defiance, Admiral Davis and Captain Miller watched the tactical display as the remaining Dominion ships retreated from New Horizon Colony. They'll be back, Miller said quietly, and in much greater numbers. Davis nodded. We're counting on it. That's why we revealed our fleet now rather than waiting longer. Miller looked confused. I don't understand. Walk with me, Davis said, leading him from the bridge into a private meeting room. Once the door closed, Davis activated a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. The Dominion has ruled through fear for too long. Other species suffer under their control. We've been in secret contact with 7 of them over the past decade. Green dots appeared across the display, marking worlds far from Earth. The Arcturians, the Vega Collective, the Free Systems of Rigel. Davis pointed to each. All waiting for someone to stand against the Dominion, but none have the technology or numbers to do it alone. Miller began to understand. So our battle at New Horizon was broadcast across special channels to our allies, Davis confirmed. They now know the Dominion can be defeated. When Vex sends her main fleet against us, she'll leave her core worlds vulnerable. A coordinated rebellion, Miller whispered. While the Dominion focuses on us? Davis smiled grimly. Exactly. But first, we need to survive her next attack. 3 days later, the massive Dominion fleet arrived at the edge of human space. 4,800 warships prepared to crush the upstart humans once and for all. Commander Krell stood on the bridge of the flagship, surveying the armada. He commanded. Even against the humans' mysterious technology, such overwhelming numbers would surely prevail. All ships report ready, Commander, his second-in-command announced. Krell nodded. Begin the advance. Target Earth directly. Cut off the head, and the body will die. The enormous fleet moved forward in perfect formation, a testament to the Dominion's 10,000 years of military tradition. As they approached the outer edges of the Sol system, human ships appeared ahead, a mere 300 vessels facing the might of the Dominion armada. They send so few to oppose us? Krell laughed. Perhaps they've realized the futility of resistance. His tactical officer studied the sensor readings with concern. Sir, these ships are different from the ones we faced at New Horizon. Larger, more power readings. Before Krell could respond, the space around the Dominion fleet distorted. Massive waves of gravity rolled through their formation, throwing ships off course and disrupting their careful battle lines. What's happening? Krell demanded. Unknown gravity distortions, Commander, the science officer reported frantically. They're coming from Jupiter. The massive gas giant that orbited Earth's sun was glowing with strange blue energy patterns across its swirling storms. The human ships weren't attacking. They were simply holding position. They're using the planet itself as a weapon, the science officer realized with horror. They've installed gravity generators throughout Jupiter's core. The Dominion ship struggled against the unpredictable gravity waves. Hundreds of smaller vessels were crushed or thrown into collisions as space itself became their enemy. Press forward, Krell ordered. Ignore the distortions. Target those human ships. The Dominion fleet fired thousands of energy beams toward the human vessels. But as the beams approached, they bent and twisted, missing their targets entirely. They're bending our weapons fire with gravity fields, the tactical officer reported. Krell slammed his fist on his command chair. Launch all fighters. They can't distort so many targets at once. 10,000 Dominion fighters streamed toward the human ships. As they approached, 300 new contacts appeared on Krell's tactical display. Small, fast human fighters launching from the larger vessels. Unlike the Dominion fighters, which relied on speed and energy weapons, the human craft were nearly invisible to sensors. They phased in and out of normal space, appearing inside the Dominion fighter formations, causing chaos and confusion. On the bridge of the UES Swift, one of humanity's carrier ships, Commander Tanya Lee watched her pilots tear through the Dominion fighter screen. Tiger Squadron, watch your phase timing, she ordered over the tactical channel. Remember your training. 3 seconds in normal space, then phase out. Don't give them a chance to lock weapons. Yes, Commander, came the response from Tiger. Leader, their fighters have no defense against our phasing. It's almost too easy. Lee frowned. Stay focused. There's nothing easy about this battle. On her display, she could see the massive Dominion fleet struggling against the gravity weapons built into Jupiter. Earth Command had spent 15 years hollowing out sections of the gas giant to install enormous gravity generators. The planet itself had become humanity's greatest weapon. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Defiance, Admiral Davis and Captain Miller watched the battle unfold. The Jupiter gravity defense is working better than expected, Miller observed. Davis nodded. For now. But look, their largest ships are adapting using counter-gravity fields to stabilize. Indeed, the massive Dominion dreadnoughts were slowly pushing through the gravity distortions, adjusting their fields to compensate. It's time for Phase 2, Davis decided. She opened a channel to all human ships. All vessels, execute Operation Sunburst. Across the battlefield, the human ships suddenly broke formation, accelerating toward the sun at incredible speeds. Commander Krell watched with confusion as the human fleet retreated. They run toward their star? Cowards. His science officer looked up from her console, eyes wide with alarm. Commander, I'm detecting massive energy buildups within the human ships. They're doing something to the sun. As the Dominion fleet watched, unable to pursue quickly through the gravity distortions, the human vessels formed a perfect ring around Earth's star. Blue energy beams connected each ship to the next, creating a complete circuit. What are they doing? Krell demanded. His question was answered as the surface of the sun erupted in a carefully controlled solar flare, a massive tongue of plasma directed straight toward the Dominion fleet. Evasive maneuvers, Krell shouted, but it was too late. The solar flare engulfed the front third of his fleet. Overwhelming shields and melting hull metal, hundreds of ships vanished in the stellar fire. As the flare dissipated, Krell stared at the damage report in shock. Over 1,500 Dominion vessels destroyed or disabled in a single attack. They've weaponized their star, his science officer whispered in awe and horror. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Krell felt true fear. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were fighting in ways the Dominion had never imagined possible. Empress Vex must be informed, he said quietly. We need to regroup and reconsider our approach. As he gave the order to withdraw, the surviving ships, Krell wondered if the mighty Dominion had finally met its match. Empress Vex stood alone in her private chamber aboard her personal warship, the Eternal Dominion. The massive vessel, 12 miles long and carrying enough weapons to destroy an entire planet, had moved to the edge of human space. Outside her viewport, the remnants of her once proud fleet gathered, 3,000 ships remained of the original 5,000. The reports from Commander Krell had been difficult to believe, yet the evidence was undeniable. Humans had technologies the Dominion had never imagined. They had turned planets into weapons and bent starlight to their will. "Empress," her aide called softly from the doorway. "They are here." Vex turned, her scaled face showing no emotion. "Send them in." The doors slid open to reveal Captain James Miller and Admiral Helen Davis. They entered without escort, walking calmly into what might have been a trap. Their confidence infuriated Vex, but she kept her anger controlled. "You requested this meeting," Vex said coldly. "Speak." Miller stepped forward. "Empress, this war can end today. No more ships need be lost, no more lives sacrificed. You think because you won 2 battles you have won the war?" Vex scoffed. "The Dominion spans 1,000 worlds. We can build more ships. We can gather more forces. This conflict has barely begun." "It's not just about our battles," Davis replied. "While your main fleet attacked Earth, other things were happening across the galaxy." She activated a small device, projecting a galaxy map into the air between them. Red dots representing Dominion worlds flashed across the display. 7 hours ago, the Arcturian Conclave overthrew Dominion rule in their home system, Davis explained, pointing to a cluster of stars. 5 hours ago, the Vega Collective did the same. 3 hours ago, the Rigel systems declared independence. Vex stared at the display, her 4 eyes widening slightly, the only sign of her shock. "You coordinated this," she realized. "You planned this rebellion." Miller nodded. "For 10 years we've been in contact with species under Dominion rule. We shared our technology with them, helped them prepare. They just needed to know the Dominion could be defeated." "Traitors," Vex hissed. "Freedom fighters," Davis corrected. "People tired of living under the boot of an empire that takes everything and gives nothing in return." Before Vex could respond, the doors to her chamber opened again. Commander Krell entered, followed by several other Dominion leaders. Their expressions were grim. "Empress," Krell said, bowing slightly, "we're receiving reports from across Dominion space. 27 systems have declared independence in the past 12 hours. Our forces are stretched too thin to respond to all of them." "And there's more," a new voice announced. Everyone turned to see a holographic projection appear beside the humans. 7 figures materialized, representatives from different alien species, each wearing formal diplomatic attire. "I am Council Leader Exor of the Arcturian Conclave," announced a tall, slender being with blue skin and silver eyes. "We have observed these events with great interest. Humanity has demonstrated that your empire is not invincible. The balance of power has shifted. We have formed a new alliance," added another figure, a golden-skinned being with 4 arms. "The Free Systems Coalition. Already 112 worlds have joined our cause." Vex's crest flattened against her head, a sign of extreme distress among her kind. "This is unprecedented treason," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Miller stepped forward again. "It doesn't have to be war, Empress. We're offering a different path. A new galactic accord where all species, including the Dominion, have equal standing. Where trade and cooperation replace conquest and subjugation." He placed a data crystal on the table before her. "These are our terms. Fair terms. The alternative is a war that might last decades. You might win eventually, but at a cost too terrible to contemplate." Vex stared at the crystal for a long moment. In her 10,000 years of rule, no one had ever dared to offer terms to the Dominion. Yet here she stood, facing not just humanity but a coalition of former subjects who now possessed technology that rivaled or surpassed her own. "Commander," she said finally, "your assessment of our strategic position?" Krell stepped forward, his military training evident in his precise movements. "Empress, we face a multi-front conflict against enemies with technology we do not fully understand. Our supply lines are compromised. 23 shipyards have been captured by rebel forces. If we commit to full war, the cost would be—" He hesitated. "Unprecedented." Vex's rage still burned, but her survival instinct was stronger. The Dominion had ruled for 10,000 years by knowing when to strike and when to adapt. "Leave us," she ordered her commanders. When they had gone, she turned back to the humans and the alien representatives. "Speak plainly. What do you really want?" Admiral Davis met her gaze. "A galaxy where power is balanced, where no single species dictates to all others, where we can all advance together rather than at each other's expense." "And if I refuse?" Vex challenged. "Then we fight," Davis said simply. "Our ships can phase between dimensions, our weapons manipulate gravity itself. We've turned planets and stars into weapons, and now we've shared these technologies with your former subjects." Miller's expression softened slightly. "But that's not what we want, Empress. War benefits no one in the long run. History has taught humanity that bitter lesson many times." For a long moment, Vex was silent, calculating her options. Then, with a movement that surprised everyone present, she picked up the data crystal. "I will review your terms," she said. "The Dominion has survived this long by adapting when necessary." 3 days later, representatives from 28 species gathered on neutral ground, a space station orbiting a star at the borders of human and Dominion space. The Eternal Dominion hung in space nearby alongside the UES Defiance. Inside the station's grand conference chamber, Captain Miller watched as Empress Vex pressed her clawed hand to the document before her, the Terran Accord. It would restructure power across the galaxy, limiting the Dominion's authority while establishing protections for all member species. Admiral Davis signed next, representing Earth's unified government. Then, one by one, representatives from the newly freed worlds added their signatures or marks. When it was done, an expectant hush fell over the chamber. Empress Vex rose to her full height, towering over the human representatives. "Let it be known," she declared, her voice carrying to all present, "that the Stellar Dominion honors its agreements. A new age begins today." As the gathering broke into muted conversation, Miller found himself standing next to the Empress. "Your deception was masterful, human," Vex said quietly. "For 30 years you prepared for this moment." Miller nodded. "We learned from Earth's history. Appearing weak while building strength is the surest way to deter aggression. We never wanted war, just the ability to prevent one." Vex's mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. "Perhaps your species has wisdom after all. The Dominion adapted too slowly to your emergence. That will not happen again." "Is that a threat, Empress?" Miller asked calmly. "A recognition," Vex replied. "The galaxy has changed. We must change with it." As the Empress moved away to speak, with other delegates, Admiral Davis joined Miller by the viewport. Together they looked out at the stars, the same stars that humanity had nearly gone to war for, now secured through a combination of strength, deception, and ultimately, diplomacy. "Do you think it will last?" Miller asked quietly. Davis shrugged. "Peace is never permanent, but we've created something unprecedented, a balance of power that makes war too costly for anyone to attempt." Miller smiled slightly. "From hiding ships and gas giants to rewriting the galactic order. Not bad for a species that the Dominion thought was easy prey." "The best deceptions," Davis said, "are the ones that lead to truth in the end. We pretended to be weak to avoid war. Now we've revealed our strength to secure peace." Outside the viewport, ships from 24 species moved in careful patterns, no longer enemies, not quite friends, but bound together by the new reality they had all helped create. The deception that had saved humanity from subjugation had become the foundation for an unprecedented era of peace among the stars. The morning sun cut through the half-closed blinds of Jack Reed's small apartment. He rolled over with a groan, his hand slapping the alarm clock into silence. Another day in the life of a former military pilot with nowhere to fly. Jack sat up and rubbed his eyes. At 23, he should have been at the peak of his career with the Earth Defense Force. Instead, he found himself discharged after questioning orders during a border patrol that nearly ended in disaster. His superiors called it insubordination. Jack called it common sense. His tiny kitchen offered the usual choices: instant coffee or instant coffee. As the kettle boiled, Jack stared at the collection of model spaceships lining his shelf. Each one represented a dream now beyond his reach. "Message incoming," announced his home system. Jack sighed. Display. The air in front of him shimmered, but instead of the usual text or video call, a three-dimensional hologram formed. Technology far beyond Earth standard. Jack's coffee mug slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. The hologram showed a massive spinning space station, built around what appeared to be a captured star. Text floated beneath it. "Sunspire Academy, you have been selected," a voice emerged from the projection, deep and clearly non-human. "Jack Reed of Earth, I am Headmaster Torek of Sunspire Academy. For 10,000 years we have trained the galaxy's elite. Today we extend an invitation to you, the first human candidate in our history." Jack circled the hologram. Coffee forgotten. This has to be a joke. The message continued as if anticipating his response. "This is no deception. Our observers have monitored your species for decades. While humanity remains classified as a junior species by Galactic Coalition standards, certain individuals show potential." Images flashed, showing Jack's military training, his simulator scores, and finally the incident that ended his career, refusing orders to fire on what his instruments indicated was a civilian vessel. "Your physical capabilities are unremarkable. By galactic standards," the voice continued without emotion. "However, your decision-making patterns and stress responses are unusual. Sunspire seeks diversity of thought. You provide this." Jack laughed, the kind of laugh that comes when reality becomes too absurd to process any other way. Earth had achieved interstellar travel barely 30 years ago and remained on the fringes of galactic politics. Most advanced species viewed humans as barely civilized apes who somehow stumbled into space. "The selection is a great honor," the message continued. "It is also a warning. Sunspire Academy accepts only those who can survive its training. Our mortality rate is 17%. This is not a metaphor. Failure at Sunspire often means death." Jack's laughter died in his throat. "A representative will arrive in 3 Earth days to transport you should you accept. This invitation expires in 24 hours. The hologram faded, leaving behind a simple floating button marked "Accept" in multiple languages. Jack stared at the empty space, wondering if he'd finally lost his mind. "It's real," confirmed Director Ortiz, head of Earth's Bureau of Extraterrestrial Affairs. The government officials had arrived at Jack's door within 2 hours of the message. Now they sat in his living room, looking as out of place as their expensive suits. "And you knew about this?" Jack asked, pacing the small room. "Not exactly," said Ortiz. "We've heard rumors about Sunspire. It's something between a military academy and a diplomatic training ground for the most advanced species. No human has ever received an invitation." "Until now," added the second official, a stern woman who had introduced herself only as Agent Clark. "This is a significant opportunity, Mr. Reed." Jack stopped pacing. "An opportunity for what? To die in space? They literally said people don't survive this place." Ortiz leaned forward. "Sunspire graduates become leaders, diplomats, and military commanders throughout the coalition. When you succeed, it could change humanity's standing among the stars." "And why me? I'm a washout," Clark spoke up. "Your psychological profile indicates high adaptability and unconventional problem solving. And despite what you might think, your insubordination incident actually marked you as someone with independent judgment." Jack laughed bitterly. "So the aliens like me because I can't follow orders? Great. They like you because you think differently," Ortiz corrected. "Most coalition species have very structured thought patterns. Humans are unpredictable. And that's good? It's unique," Clark said. "And at Sunspire, unique might keep you alive." Jack turned to the window, looking up at the sky. Somewhere up there, a space station orbited a captured star, filled with beings who thought humans were interesting specimens at best, future threats at worst. What happens if I say no? The officials exchanged glances. Nothing, Ortiz said finally. You continue your life. But humanity loses a chance to prove itself as something more than a junior species. Jack knew they were manipulating him, pushing at his sense of duty and his wounded pride. The worst part was, it was working. I need time to think. That night, Jack sat on his roof watching the stars. His hand held a small medallion, his grandfather's from the days when humans still fought each other, before the stars unified them. He flipped it between his fingers, the worn metal catching moonlight. His comm unit buzzed. The caller ID showed his mother's face. Jack, is it true? Her voice trembled with a mixture of fear and pride. How did you find out? Your father called. He said the military briefed him. Of course they had. Admiral Ben Reed would be informed of anything involving his son, despite their estrangement. I haven't decided yet, Mom. She was quiet for a moment. Your grandfather used to say that every generation has its frontier. His was the ocean. Your father's was the solar system. And mine is out there, Jack finished, looking at the stars. If you go, she said carefully, you might not come back. Jack closed his fist around the medallion. If I don't go, I'll never leave at all. 3 days later, Jack stood on the landing pad at the North American spaceport, a single bag slung over his shoulder. Director Ortiz stood beside him along with a team of scientists eager to witness an alien vessel up close. Any last advice? Jack asked. Ortiz smiled thinly. Don't die. Helpful. One more thing, Ortiz added, his expression serious. Whatever happens up there, remember you're not just representing yourself. You're representing all of us. The sky darkened suddenly as a massive ship appeared from nowhere, its hull shimmering with technology that made Earth's best ships look like children's toys. It hovered silently, defying gravity without visible engines. A beam of light shot down, solidifying into a ramp. At its top stood a figure, tall, reptilian, with 4 arms and scales that shifted color like oil on water. Jack Reed of Earth, the alien called, its voice the same as in the hologram. I am Torek. Your decision? Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Behind him lay everything familiar, a planet where he was just another failed pilot. Ahead waited the unknown, danger, and perhaps a chance to be something more. He stepped forward onto the ramp. I accept. The ramp began to retract, lifting Jack toward the waiting ship. As Earth fell away beneath him, he caught one last glimpse of his home planet, blue and beautiful and suddenly very small. The last thing he heard before the ship sealed around him was Torek's voice. Welcome to Sunspire Dangerous Academy, human. Survival begins now. The ship journey lasted 3 days by Earth time, though Jack couldn't be sure if time passed the same way in deep space. His quarters were small but comfortable, with strange food that tasted like nothing he recognized but somehow satisfied his hunger. He saw no one except Torek, who appeared once a day to check on him without saying much. On what Jack thought was the 3rd morning, Torek entered his room and said simply, "We arrive." Jack followed the tall reptilian being to the ship's observation deck. The view stole his breath away. Before them floated Sunspire Academy, a massive ring-shaped station slowly rotating around a small, incredibly bright star. Is that a neutron star? Torek confirmed. Captured and harnessed, it powers everything. As they approached, Jack realized just how enormous the station was. The main ring must have been at least 10 miles across, with smaller rings and structures extending outward like spokes on a wheel. How many students are there? Jack asked. 5,000 from across the galaxy, Torek replied. Today we welcome 500 new arrivals. Statistically, 300 will survive to graduation. Jack's stomach tightened. You really weren't joking about the death rate. Torek's scales shifted from green to a deep blue. Sunspire does not joke, human. The docking bay was chaos. Hundreds of strange ships and even stranger beings. Jack saw creatures with multiple limbs, some floating in liquid environments, others encased in mechanical suits. His human form felt painfully ordinary among them. "Processing first," Torek announced, guiding Jack toward a large doorway where lines of new arrivals waited. "What's processing?" Jack asked, but Torek had already vanished into the crowd. Jack joined the line, trying not to stare at the four-armed blue creature in front of him or the floating orb of light behind him. Nobody spoke to him, though many stared or made sounds he guessed were whispers. When his turn came, Jack entered a chamber where robotic arms descended from the ceiling. A voice spoke in perfect English. "Remain still for biological assessment." The BR arms moved around him, taking samples of his hair, skin, and blood. Light scanned him from head to toe. It was uncomfortable but not painful. Species: human. Baseline physical capabilities recorded. Endurance: above species average. Reflex response: above species average. Pain tolerance: significantly above species average. Jack raised an eyebrow. He'd never thought of himself as particularly tough. Atmospheric requirements noted. Room assignment: Level 7, Block 3, Unit 12. Roommate assigned. Proceed to orientation. The door on the opposite side slid open, and Jack stepped through, finding himself in a corridor bustling with new arrivals. A map appeared on the wall beside him, a blinking dot showing his location and a line leading to orientation. As he followed the map, Jack noticed the gravity felt slightly heavier than Earth normal. His muscles would ache by day's end. The orientation hall was massive, with rising seats filled with beings of all descriptions. Jack found his assigned spot next to a blue-skinned creature with 4 arms who gave him a sideways glance. "You are the human?" the alien said, voice clicking oddly. "Jack," he replied, extending his hand before realizing the gesture might mean nothing here. To his surprise, the alien extended a lower right arm. "They call me Max, not my real name, but easier for most species to pronounce." Jack shook the offered hand carefully. "Nice to meet you." "We are roommates," Max said. "I requested a non-gaseous bunkmate. They assigned me you." "Lucky you," Jack said dryly. Max's eyes blinked in sequence rather than together. "There is a betting pool on how long you will survive. The average bet is 7 days. Jack stared. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." "I bet 14, Max said, as if this were generous. Before Jack could respond, the lights dimmed. "Headmaster." Torek appeared on a central platform, his scales now a formal black and gold. "New arrivals." His voice boomed without visible amplification. "You stand in a place few are invited to enter. Fewer still will remain to graduation day." Images appeared in the air above him, different species in various training scenarios, some triumphant, others clearly struggling. Sunspire accepts only the exceptional. We push beyond normal limits. Some will fail, some will die. This is not cruelty, it is necessity. The galaxy needs leaders who have faced the impossible and survived. Jack shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Look around you," Torek continued. "Of the 500 in this room, our historical data suggests only 300 will complete the year." Uneasy murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Your first challenge begins now. Return to your assigned quarters. Instructions await." Dismissed. Jack and Max made their way to their room in silence. The quarters were simple. 2 beds, 2 desks, a shared bathing facility with settings for different biologies. On each desk sat what looked like a glass cube. When Jack touched his, it lit up with text. Challenge 1. Adaptation report to training. Hall 3 in 1 hour bring nothing. Max raid his own cube and made a sound like metal grinding. Adaptation tests are designed for pain. Jack's mouth went dry. "What kind of pain?" "The kind that reveals what you are made of," Max replied. "Sometimes literally." Training Hall 3 looked like a massive gymnasium with obstacles and equipment Jack couldn't begin to identify. About 50 new students gathered, representing a dozen different species. A silver-skinned humanoid with no visible eyes approached Jack. "You're the human," she said, her voice musical. "That obvious?" Jack replied. "I'm Lyra," she said. "My people are somewhat telepathic. Your thoughts are loud. Jack winced. Sorry about that. It's interesting, she said. Most species here think in patterns. Yours jumps around. Before Jack could respond, a gaseous entity contained in a mechanical suit floated to the center of the room. I am Professor Drath, it announced. Today you learn your first lesson. In space, environments are rarely suited to your biology. The room darkened, and suddenly gravity shifted. Jack felt himself becoming lighter, then weightless. Around him, some species seemed comfortable while others flailed. Space has no up or down, Drath continued. Some of you evolved in gravity, some did not. Today, none of you have advantage. Floating obstacles appeared, moving barriers, shifting light patterns, and temperature zones. Reach the opposite side. Work with your assigned team. Fail together. Or succeed together. Jack found himself grouped with Max, Lyra, and two other aliens he hadn't met. One looked like a giant caterpillar. The other was a crystalline structure that somehow moved. Begin, Drath announced. Immediately, chaos erupted. Some students shot across the room using natural propulsion. Others crashed into obstacles. Jack's team hovered uncertainly. Any ideas? Jack asked, trying to control his rotation. The crystalline being made a series of musical tones. Lyra nodded. Rick says the obstacles appear to have a pattern, she translated. Jack squinted, watching the movements. His pilot training kicked in. Tracking multiple objects was something he knew well. There, he said, pointing. Every 30 seconds, a path opens up. If we time it right. Max looked skeptical. How do we move together? None of us have the same propulsion. Jack grinned, grabbing a loose strap from his uniform. We make a chain. Max, you're strongest. You go first and pull. I'll be the link. To Lyra, who connects to Rix, who holds Tarn. He nodded to the caterpillar-like being. This is foolish, Max said, but he took the offered strap. For the next hour, they practiced, failing repeatedly. Each failure taught them something. How to coordinate movements, how to protect weaker team members, how to use each species' strengths. On their 7th attempt, they made it halfway across before a sudden temperature drop caused Tarn to convulse. Can't handle the cold, Lyra warned. Jack made a split-second decision, positioning himself between Tarn and the cold zone, using his body as a shield. Max, full speed now, he shouted. The blue alien pulled hard, launching their chain through the cold section before Jack's own body temperature dropped too far. They crashed onto the other side in a tangled heap, the third team to finish. Professor Drath floated over to them. Interesting solution, human. Using your own thermal mass as a shield was unexpected. Jack, shivering violently, managed a smile. Just adapting, Professor. Later, as they returned to their quarters, Max gave Jack a puzzled look. You risked tissue damage to help Tarn. You barely know him. Jack shrugged. That's what teams do. Perhaps, Max said slowly. I should change my bet in the pool. Jack raised an eyebrow. To what? 1 month. Max's eyes blinked in sequence. I think you may last longer than expected, human. Jack grinned. It wasn't much, but it was a start. 2 weeks passed at Sunspire, each day bringing new challenges that pushed Jack to his limits. His muscles ached constantly from the slightly higher gravity. His skin had burned and healed twice from exposure to strange energies. But he was still alive, which was more than could be said for 18 of his fellow new arrivals. Jack sat in the Academy's vast dining hall, poking at food designed to be nutritionally complete for humans but tasting like bland cardboard. Max sat across from him, consuming something that looked like moving blue crystals. You survived the hive mind simulation yesterday, Max noted. Most non-telepathic species fail that test. Jack shrugged. I just treated it like a puzzle. If you can't read minds, you have to look for patterns in behavior. Lyra joined them, her silver skin gleaming under the artificial lights. It was impressive. Professor Drath has been talking about your solution. Great, Jack said. More attention is exactly what I need. Attention means people are watching, Max said. Watching means they expect something from you, or they're waiting for me to fail, Jack replied. Lyra's expression was hard to read without visible eyes, but her voice softened. Not everyone. Some are actually changing their bets in the survival pool. The latest average is up to 6 weeks. Jack laughed. I'm flattered. A hush fell over the dining hall. Jack turned to see what had caused it. A human male stood in the entrance wearing the same uniform as Jack but looking far more confident. Another human? Max whispered, forearms tensing. In surprise, the newcomer spotted Jack and walked directly to their table. He was taller than Jack, with military posture and a winning smile. Jack Reed? I'm Tom Wilson. Looks like I'm not the only Earthling here anymore. Jack stood, shaking the offered hand. I didn't know they were sending anyone else. Tom's smile remained fixed. Last-minute decision. Earth's not putting all its eggs in one basket, so to speak. Something about Tom's perfect smile and carefully casual tone set off warning bells in Jack's mind, but he pushed the feeling aside. Another human at Sunspire could only help his chances of survival. Join us, Jack offered, gesturing to their table. That afternoon, Jack and Tom faced off in the combat training arena. Each held a practice weapon, a staff that could be programmed to simulate any melee weapon in the galaxy. Begin, called Professor Drath, hovering at the edge of the circular platform. Tom moved first, his staff shifting into a curved blade. His technique was flawless, clearly enhanced military training. Jack barely blocked the first strike, his own staff morphing into a defensive shield. You're holding back, Tom said quietly as they circled each other. What are you talking about? Jack grunted, deflecting another strike. Your file says you're better than this, Tom replied, pressing forward. Show them what humans can really do. Jack frowned. How did Tom know what was in his file? But there was no time to think as Tom launched a series of attacks that drove Jack to the edge of the platform. One wrong step and he'd fall 15 feet to the hard floor below. The watching students murmured. Jack could feel their eyes, waiting for the human to fail. Something clicked in Jack's mind. Tom wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to make Jack look good. The realization hit him like cold water. You're not here to compete, Jack whispered during their next clash. You're my backup plan. Tom's smile flickered. Earth needs a representative to graduate. Doesn't matter which one of us it is. Jack felt anger rise in his chest. He'd been struggling for 2 weeks, earning every small victory, while Earth sent a ringer to ensure success. Without thinking, Jack switched tactics. He stopped fighting by the Academy's formal combat rules and fell back on street fighting he'd learned growing up. His movements became unpredictable, his style chaotic. The watching aliens went silent as Jack launched a series of unorthodox attacks that didn't follow any recognizable pattern. Tom, despite his superior training, couldn't anticipate where the next strike would come from. In less than a minute, Jack had Tom pinned, the practice weapon at his throat. Match to Reed, Professor Drath announced, genuine surprise in his gaseous voice. As they left the arena, Tom grabbed Jack's arm. What was that? He hissed. Human unpredictability, Jack replied with a grin. Isn't that why we're here? That night, an alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Emergency in Habitat Module 7, the station's AI announced. All students returned to quarters. Jack sat up in bed. That's 2 levels down from us. What's happening? Max's skin had paled to a light blue. Containment. Breach, possibly. Very bad if true. The door to their room slid open and Lyra stood there, panic clear in her posture. Jack, Max, we need help. A group of first years is trapped in the module. Jack was already pulling on his boots. What happened? Atmospheric controls malfunctioned. The module is losing pressure and heat. The emergency systems aren't responding. Where are the instructors? Max asked, joining them in the hall. Dealing with another emergency on the far side of the station, Lyra said. Please, there's no time. They ran through corridors now mostly empty as other students followed orders to return to quarters. When they reached Module 7, the entrance was sealed, with emergency barriers. A small group of students huddled nearby, including Tom. The system's locked everyone out, Tom explained. There are 5 students inside. The air is already down to 60% normal pressure. Jack examined the control panel beside the door. Can we override it? Not without instructor authorization, Lyra said. Jack turned to Max. Your species has enhanced strength, right? Can you force it? Max's forearms flexed. Not against station security systems, Jack thought quickly. Then we need to trick the system into opening itself. He turned to the gathered students. Does anyone here have technical skills? Engineering? A crystalline being stepped forward. Rix from his first team challenge. The alien made musical tones that Lyra translated. Rick says he can access the emergency systems from a maintenance tunnel, but the tunnel is flooded with radiation right now. What kind of radiation? Jack asked. The kind that will kill most. Organic life forms, Tom said grimly. Jack looked around at the gathered aliens, each with different biological strengths and weaknesses. A plan formed in his mind. Rix, can you survive the radiation? The crystalline being chimed in affirmative. Max, your species has resistance to cold, right? Max nodded. Significant resistance. And Lyra, your telepathy, can you maintain contact with everyone even through barriers? Yes, but perfect, Jack interrupted. Here's what we're going to do. For the next 5 minutes, Jack outlined a plan that used each species' unique abilities. Rix would navigate the maintenance tunnel to access the emergency systems. Max would enter the module once they got the door open, as he could handle the freezing temperatures longest. Lyra would coordinate telepathically, while Jack and Tom would prepare medical support for the evacuees. This is insane, Tom muttered. We should wait for the instructors. They won't make it in time, Jack insisted. We're doing this. To Jack's surprise, no one argued further. Even more surprising, they followed his instructions without question. The plan worked. Mostly. Rix accessed the systems. Max rescued 3 of the trapped students, and Tom proved his worth by carrying out the 4th who had collapsed. The 5th student, a gaseous entity like Professor Drath, had already condensed into a survival state and merely needed containment. As the medical team took over, Jack sank to the floor, exhaustion overtaking him. You organized a rescue against direct orders, came a deep voice. Jack looked up to see Dean Vex, the station's stern administrator, standing over him. The tall, gray-skinned alien had made no secret of his dislike for humans. Yes, sir, Jack admitted. The trapped students wouldn't have survived if we'd waited. Vex's expression remained cold. You put additional students at risk with your actions. No one was forced to help, Jack countered. Everyone volunteered. The dean's eyes narrowed. Interesting that 2 such emergencies would occur simultaneously, on opposite sides of the station. Almost as if someone planned it. Jack stood slowly. Are you suggesting this was deliberate? I suggest nothing, Vex replied. But I will be watching you, human. Both of you. He glanced at Tom before walking away. As the corridor cleared, Tom approached Jack. That was good work. Maybe we make a decent team after all. Jack nodded, but his mind was stuck on Vex's words. 2 simultaneous emergencies. Someone planning it. The thought sent a chill through him that had nothing to do with the module's freezing temperature. Someone at Sunspire wanted the humans to fail, and they might be willing to kill to make it happen. 1 month into Jack's time at Sunspire, the suspicions about Dean Vex grew stronger. 3 more accidents had occurred, all targeting training sessions involving humans. In the last incident, Tom had barely escaped a gravity malfunction that crushed training equipment to scrap metal. Jack and Tom sat in a quiet corner of the station's observation deck, looking out at the neutron star that powered the academy. Its intense light was filtered through special shields that turned the deadly radiation into a beautiful blue glow. We need proof, Tom said, keeping his voice low. If someone's targeting humans, we can't just make accusations without evidence. Jack nodded. I've been mapping the accidents. They all connect to systems Dean Vex has access to. That's still not proof. He's the administrator. He has access to everything. A shadow fell across them. Jack looked up to see Max, his forearms folded, across his chest. You should not speak of the Dean where others might hear, Max warned, sitting beside them. Walls have sensors in Sunspire. You think we're right about him? Jack asked. Max's skin rippled with dark blue patterns, a sign of distress in his species. I have access to old records. Dean Vex's homeworld had first contact with humans 300 years ago. It ended badly. Tom leaned forward. How badly? His species once populated 12 worlds. After meeting humans, they occupy 3. There was a disease, a human virus that mutated. It was not intentional, but his people have long memories. Jack felt cold despite the temperature-controlled environment. He blames all humans for something that happened centuries ago. His family was among the hardest hit, Max confirmed. But that is not all. Tomorrow brings the Crucible. Both humans stared at him. What's the Crucible? Jack asked. The most dangerous test at Sunspire. Only given to those who break major rules or show exceptional ability. Max looked pointedly at Jack. You earned notice by organizing that rescue. Notice is not always good. Before Jack could respond, his communication device beeped. The message was simple. Report to Headmaster's office. Immediately, Headmaster Torik's office was a circular room high in the station's central hub. One wall was transparent, showing the neutron star pulsing like a cosmic heartbeat. Torik himself stood with his back to the door, scales shifting through patterns of gold and black. Jack Reed, he said without turning, you continue to surprise us. Jack remained silent, waiting. Most species conform quickly to Academy protocols. Humans appear resistant to conformity. Is that why I'm here, sir? Because I don't conform? Torik turned, his reptilian eyes studying Jack carefully. You are here because of a request. The Earth Diplomatic Corps has sent a representative to observe your progress. The door behind Jack opened. He turned, expecting perhaps another government official like the ones who had briefed him on Earth. Instead, he found himself staring at Admiral Ben Reed, his father. Dad? The word escaped before Jack could stop it. The Admiral nodded stiffly. Cadet Reed. Torik's scales flickered with what Jack had learned was amusement. I will leave you to your reunion. He glided from the room, the door sealing behind him. For a long moment, father and son stared at each other. The Admiral looked older than Jack remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper, his posture slightly less rigid. You look well, the Admiral finally said. Better than expected given the reports. What are you doing here? Jack demanded, anger rising unexpectedly. And don't say it's an official observation. There are a dozen diplomats who could have come instead. The Admiral sighed, some of his formal demeanor slipping. I requested the assignment. Why? To see if you were all right. A pause. And to warn you. Jack's anger faltered. Warn me about what? Politics. The Admiral moved to the window, looking out at the star. Your presence here has larger implications than you know. Some on Earth want humans to succeed at Sunspire at any cost. Others in the Galactic Coalition would prefer we remain a junior species indefinitely. Understanding dawned on Jack. That's why Tom was sent. He's not just my backup, he's insurance. The Admiral nodded. The stakes are high, Jack. Higher than one person's success or failure. Is that why you're really here? To make sure Earth's investment pays off? His father turned, something like pain crossing his face. I'm here because my son is in danger and I pulled every string I could to get on that transport ship. Before Jack could respond, the room's communication system chimed. Headmaster Torik to Jack Reed. Report to Testing Chamber 0 immediately. Your crucible begins in 1 hour. Jack stood before a massive circular door marked with warning symbols from a dozen different species. He wore a protective suit that felt too thin for whatever waited on the other side. Headmaster Torik stood beside him, along with Professor Drath, Dean Vex, and a small group of senior instructors. Tom, Max, and Lyra had come to see him off, though they weren't permitted to approach. His father stood with them, face unreadable. The crucible is unique for each student, Torek explained. It tests not just survival skills but judgment and character. For you, the challenge lies at the heart of Sunspire. The neutron star containment facility, Dean Vex added, his voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. Jack's mouth went dry. That's the most dangerous part of the station. Indeed, Torek confirmed. The facility requires maintenance. The robotic systems have failed. Someone must go, a living being with problem-solving capabilities. And you chose me. The Dean. Recommended you specifically, Professor Drath noted, his gaseous form swirling faster than usual. Jack glanced at Vex, whose face remained impassive. How convenient. You may decline, Torek said. No student is forced to attempt the crucible. But if I decline, your evaluation will note that you reached your limits. Jack thought about Earth, about humanity's position in the galaxy, about his own future. He thought about the betting pool that now had him surviving to graduation. He thought about his father watching. What exactly do I need to do? He asked. Torek handed him a small device. The containment field requires recalibration. This tool will guide you. The challenge is reaching the core control room through areas of intense radiation and gravitational fluctuations. Has anyone completed this version of the crucible before? A heavy silence fell. Finally, Torek answered, No. Jack took a deep breath. Then I'll be the first. As the instructor stepped back, Tom approached, ignoring protocols. This is a setup, he whispered urgently. Vex designed this to eliminate you. I know, Jack replied, but I can't back down now. Then I should go instead. My combat implants give me better chances. Jack shook his head. That's why it has to be me. The unenhanced human nobody expected to survive this long. He managed to smile. Besides, if I fail, Earth still has you. Tom clasped his shoulder. Don't fail. The massive door began to slide open, revealing a narrow corridor bathed in blue light. Jack could feel heat radiating from it even where he stood. His father approached, standing at attention. Jack, he began, then stopped. Military discipline, warring with parental concern. Jack nodded. I know, Dad. Duty first. The Admiral shook his head. Not this time. He pulled Jack into a brief, fierce hug. Come back. That's an order. As Jack stepped toward the doorway, Dean Vex moved closer. A shame your species will lose its representative, he said quietly. But perhaps better to learn your limitations now than later. Jack met his gaze steadily. My species survived its own nuclear age, 2 global pandemics, and first contact with 17 alien civilizations. We're still here. Underestimating humans is a mistake many have made. Without waiting for a response, Jack turned and walked through the doorway into the blue light. The door sealed behind him with a final sounding thud. The crucible had begun. The corridor leading to the neutron star containment facility grew hotter with each step Jack took. His protective suit's temperature gauge rose steadily, already nearing its maximum range. The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. One moment, he felt like he weighed 300 pounds, the next he was nearly floating. Just keep moving, Jack muttered to himself, following the blue line projected by his guide device. The passage narrowed, forcing him to crawl through a maintenance tube. The metal was hot enough to burn through his gloves. Jack gritted his teeth against the pain and pushed forward. Warning, his suit announced in a calm voice. Radiation levels exceeding safe parameters. Estimated survival time, 40 minutes. Plenty of time, Jack replied sarcastically. The tube ended at a small chamber with 3 doors. The guide device pointed to the center door, but when Jack tried the handle, it was locked. Of course it is, he sighed. Jack examined the other doors. The left one was marked with warning symbols he recognized as extreme danger. The right door had a simple keypad. He studied the keypad, trying to remember the xenolinguistics he'd been learning. The symbols weren't standard galactic common. They were specific to Vex's species. When faced with a locked door, Jack recalled Professor Drath saying during a lecture, "Consider why it's locked, not just how to open it." Jack smiled grimly. The door was locked using Dean Vex's native language, a test within the test. Luckily, after suspecting Vex of sabotage, Jack had been studying his species' history and culture. The keypad needed a 6-digit code. Jack thought about what he knew of Vex's people. They measured time differently, used a base 8 numbering system, and their calendar, Jack realized. They marked time from the Great Dying, when that virus decimated their worlds. Jack entered the date of first contact with humans, converted to their numbering system. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Beyond it lay the central control room for the neutron star containment field. Blue-white light pulsed from massive energy conduits that surrounded a central platform. The heat was intense, the radiation worse. "Warning," his suit repeated. "Radiation levels critical. Estimated survival time, 15 minutes. Jack moved quickly to the control panel. According to his briefing, he needed to recalibrate the containment field, a routine but essential maintenance task. He pulled out the calibration tool and connected it to the panel. Nothing happened. Jack checked the connections, the power supply, everything he could think of. The calibration tool was dead. No, he muttered, trying again. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The tool had been sabotaged. Dean Vex had ensured Jack would reach the control room but be unable to complete his task. He would be trapped, exposure to radiation slowly killing him. Clever, Jack admitted. He was supposed to die here with no evidence of foul play, just another student who couldn't complete the crucible. But as Jack looked around the control room more carefully, he noticed something odd. Near one of the conduits was a maintenance panel that looked recently used. Jack pried it open and found a surprise, a manual override system. The old backup for the backup, Jack realized. These systems were ancient, built when Sunspire was first constructed. The manual override was simple but required physical adjustments to the conduits themselves, adjustments that would expose the operator to direct radiation. "Warning," his suit announced again. "Radiation levels exceeding all safety parameters. Estimated survival time 8 minutes." Jack laughed despite himself. Not much choice, is there? He removed his protective gloves. He needed bare hands for the delicate adjustments, and reached into the conduit housing. Pain shot through his fingers immediately as radiation burned his skin, but he kept working. One by one, Jack aligned, the conduits using the manual gauges to check his progress. His vision began to blur, his hands shaking from radiation poisoning. But he continued. The final conduit clicked into place. The pulsing light stabilized, changing from erratic blue-white to a steady gold. A mechanical voice announced, "Containment field recalibrated. Stability restored to optimal levels." Jack stumbled back from the controls, his legs giving out. He collapsed onto the floor, darkness creeping in at the edges of his vision. "Crucible. Complete," he whispered as consciousness slipped away. Jack awoke to bright light and the sound of medical equipment. For a moment he thought he was back on Earth in a hospital. Then he saw Max sitting beside his bed, all 4 arms holding different medical displays. "The human awakens," Max announced, his voice containing actual emotion for once. Jack tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Max offered him water through a straw. "How long?" Jack finally managed. 3 weeks, came another voice. Jack turned his head to see his father entering the medical bay, followed by Headmaster Torek. 3 weeks? Jack repeated in disbelief. Torek's scales shifted to a pattern Jack had never seen before, something like respect. "You were exposed to radiation levels that would have killed most species instantly. Humans, it seems, have remarkable cellular regeneration capabilities when properly treated. The containment field, perfectly recalibrated," Torek confirmed. "You completed your task despite sabotage." Jack's eyes widened. "You knew?" "We suspected," the Admiral said, his face stern. "When you lost consciousness, emergency protocols activated. The medical team found evidence the calibration tool had been tampered with." "Dean Vex?" Torik's scales darkened. Dean Vex has been removed from his position. Investigation revealed he was working with a faction that believes humans will eventually threaten galactic stability. They wanted to ensure no human ever graduated from Sunspire. Jack tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. How many students are left? Of your incoming class, 290 remain. Torik's voice softened. Below even our statistical average. And the Crucible? Did I pass? Torik made a sound Jack had learned was laughter. Jack Reed. The Crucible has never been about success. It is about character, what one does when facing the impossible. Many students have attempted similar challenges, the Admiral added. None completed their task. Some tried and failed. Others gave up. A few looked for shortcuts. You alone finished the task properly, even knowing it might kill you, Torik said. That is why you not only passed but earned highest honors. Jack stared at them both. Highest honors? Me? Max's skin rippled with blue patterns of amusement. The betting pool has ended. Those who bet on your success have become quite wealthy. 2 months later, Jack stood with the other survivors of his class in Sunspire's Grand Hall. His body had healed, though doctors said he would always carry traces of his exposure. Small price to pay, he thought. Headmaster Torik addressed the assembled students and guests, his scales formal gold and black once more. Today we celebrate those who have proven themselves worthy of Sunspire's legacy. Among them, one student has achieved what no representative of a junior species ever has before. Jack felt hundreds of eyes turned toward him. Jack Reed of Earth. Approach. Jack walked forward, conscious of Tom, Max, and Lyra watching with pride. His father stood with the other officials, for once allowing a small smile to break his military bearing. Torik presented Jack with a small crystal that glowed with inner light. The Star of Sunspire, our highest honor. May it remind you always of what you achieved here. As Jack accepted the award, Torik spoke again, this time addressing all present. The Galactic Coalition has voted. Based on the performance of their representatives at Sunspire, humanity's status has been upgraded. Earth is no longer classified as a junior species. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jack caught Dean Vex's replacement, a stern but fair administrator, nodding in approval. In his graduation speech, Jack spoke briefly. At Sunspire, I learned that survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about adaptation, cooperation, and refusing to quit. These aren't human traits, they're the qualities that unite all successful species. The stars belong to those willing to reach for them together. 1 month later, Jack stood on a platform at Earth's North American spaceport, watching as a transport ship descended. The same spot where his journey had begun, though he was not the same person who had left. The ship landed and its ramp extended. Tom emerged first, followed by Max, Lyra, and 3 other Sunspire graduates. Welcome to Earth, Jack said, grinning. Max's skin displayed patterns of excitement. Strange gravity, strange atmosphere, strange everything. You'll get used to it, Jack assured him. The exchange program is just beginning. As they walked toward the terminal, Jack noticed a new group of young humans waiting nervously near a departure gate. Their faces showed the same mix of fear and determination he had felt a year ago. Sunspire candidates? He asked a nearby official. Yes, 30 this time. Your success opened the door. Jack smiled, touching the Star of Sunspire he wore on a chain around his neck. Tell them to watch out for the betting pool. As the sun set over the spaceport, Jack led his alien friends toward their new temporary home. Behind them, a ship prepared to take the next group of humans to Sunspire Dangerous, academy where the impossible waited to be overcome.